Welcome to Empowered by Iron, the podcast for female strength athletes by female strength athletes. We are your hosts, Kristen Lander from Fiercely Fueled Nutrition Coaching and Mary Morton from Silver Linings Podcast Productions. Together, we are Empowered by Iron. This episode is brought to you by Fiercely Fueled Nutrition Coaching. The Fiercely Fueled method utilizes research-based facts and principles to create a custom nutrition program and the right amount of macronutrients to reach your goals, keep you healthy, and increase your athletic performance. Fiercely Fueled now offers hormone testing. If you are interested in nutrition coaching and or hormone testing from one of the best in the business, email Fiercely Fueled Nutrition at fiercelyfueled@gmail.com or check out their website at fiercelyfueled.com to sign up. Empowered by Iron is proud to partner with the Women's Strength Coalition. Women's Strength Coalition is on a mission to build communities through increased access to strength training. This holiday season, Women's Strength Coalition is looking to raise $30,000 in order to open their own community center and gym space. Please use the link in the description below to make a donation to Women's Strength Coalition this holiday season. And get ready for today's episode as we sit down with the founder of Women's Strength Coalition, Shannon Wagner, to discuss all things Women's Strength Coalition, her backstory, and what the future holds for the WSC. Enjoy! Hey everyone, welcome to Empowered by Iron. This week we have Shannon Wagner on, who is the CEO, is that what you're called?
Executive Director.
Executive Director, basically CEO, of Women's Strength Coalition, which is a nonprofit organization. They have a blog. We actually found Women's Strength Coalition through one of our previous guests, Ana Perez. So if you haven't listened to that episode, go back and listen to that, and then read the article that we linked for Ana on Women's Strength Coalition. So thank you so much for being on today, Shannon. We are very excited to have you on.
Thank you so much for having me.
So why don't you tell our audience a little bit about you, and then let's dive into the Women's Strength Coalition, what it is, how it got started, all that good stuff.
Okay, sure. So I guess it makes the most sense just to give a little bit of my background story. So I'm 32 years old, and basically since I was 12, so that's 20 years now, I've struggled with some form of eating disorder. And last year, and I guess the year before, really the past couple of years, it got really bad, right? So I was bulimic. I felt like it was all encompassing. It took over a great part of my life, a great part of my brain. I really didn't feel capable of doing any number of things that I wanted to do in my life, or certainly not affecting any real social change, definitely not starting a nonprofit organization. I've been strength training now for a few years. And I found that through powerlifting, I've been able to sort of just body and take up more space, have a real voice, and just feel differently about the way I interact with my environment and the world, right? So that's powerlifting. Because of that, I ended up becoming a strength and conditioning specialist. And it's mainly because I wanted to share that feeling with other women, other members of the community, to help them feel strong and empowered as well. And then in January, I went to the Women's March on Washington with my sister. And just being there, surrounded by all of those women, I felt as though it was a really great environment, and it was good to be there. I did enjoy the march, but I wondered if there was something that I could do to sort of affect change in a larger way, other than just sort of showing up and voicing my opinion, voicing things that I don't necessarily care for. So that's how the nonprofit organization was born. So that's
awesome. That. So tell us the mission of Women's Strength Coalition.
Okay, so our mission is to build stronger communities through increased access to strength training. So we got our start with our first event that was Lift for Planned Parenthood here in Brooklyn. We raised just over $14,000 for Planned Parenthood. And it was mainly because the members that participated in the meet pledged to raise $1 for every pound they planned to lift, right? So we were able to raise all of the money through registration fees. And then the women and non-binary lifters were able to then go and advocate for this issue that they cared about and use their strength to make an impact on the world.
I love that concept.
That is awesome.
That is fantastic. So it was a powerlifting meet, yeah?
Yeah, so it was an all women and non-binary powerlifting meet. And it was open to all levels, and you could compete in the squat, the bench, or the deadlift. You could compete in all three. And then, all of the profits we donated to Planned Parenthood. And the event sold out in 6 days, and it was really great.
That's incredible. How many lifters did you have at it?
Oh, we had 40 lifters.
That is a handful.
Yeah. Yes. And it was my first time being a meet director, and it was my first time hosting any sort of large scale event like that. So it's all been a huge learning experience. But yeah, that's, one of the reasons that we got started was we wanted to create a way for people to advocate for causes that they cared about that was effective, right? So it wasn't just, it was like actually creating some change in the world. Because I think after the election, a lot of us felt sort of, disheartened and disempowered, not to use that word too much, but it's very true.
Yep.
Right. Yeah. So
let's go back a little bit to you. Let's talk a little bit more about your trouble with eating, if that's okay.
Sure.
Because I know a lot of lifters, a lot of women in strength, they use the barbell to get over or help them cope with their disordered eating. I know that's how it helped me. So how did you specifically use lifting to get you over that? You still struggle with it? Tell us a little bit more just about your journey in that.
Well, first, I think that it's probably something that I'm always going to struggle with. Not to the extent that I was, but I'm coming to terms with the idea that there might always be this separate voice in my head, right? And it's whether or not you choose to listen to that voice and in which you, give the larger platform to inside of your own brain. But so, basically, as long as I can remember, I've always felt too big, or just in a room full of people, I would feel huge, if that makes any sense. Like I always felt like I stood out as just being like the largest person in the room, which is, very much body dysmorphia issues. But when I was 12 years old, my friend and I at the time, we vowed that we would never weigh over 100 pounds. And so I can remember back then really starting to pay attention to the scale, paying attention to what I eat. That's when I started restricting. I didn't get my period until I was very late, I think sort of as a result of that. I was like 16, 17. And then when that change came about, and of course I naturally gained weight, sort of threw me through a whole other loop. And that's when, I was still restricting, but then I would, of course, start binging, because that's what happens when you restrict, as, listeners may be aware of. And that led to the purging. And so that, it wasn't such a big deal in my teenage years until I went through a period of abuse, I guess you could say. You should say that's what happened. So I have experience with sexual and physical abuse, and that served to heighten the issues that I had with eating and restricting and binging and purging. They all just became my coping mechanisms. It's sort of like you're just clearing out all of your emotions every time you make yourself throw up. And so you don't really have to deal with anything if you're doing that. Just something that I think a lot of people that don't have experience with bulimia don't necessarily realize, right? It's not always about wanting to lose weight. It's tied up in that, but there are other things going on.
It's a lot about control. You feel very in control if you can get rid of whatever you just ate.
Exactly. Thank you. So when I first started lifting, and like, this is what you hear from so many women, right? We did it because we wanted to start looking better. We thought like having muscle would help us burn more calories, all of the same old things. It's not that those those beliefs aren't true. It's just that for me personally, when I started building muscle, when I started adding pounds to the bar, it changed the way I interacted with my body. And suddenly I saw myself as like this strong, powerful person. And I was able to view myself just differently, right? Like confidence isn't necessarily the right word. It was like a transformative experience. Like, oh, I'm no longer this ornament. Like I'm not just here to look good and to decorate my surroundings. And like being thin doesn't necessarily make me worthy of love and attention. Like I can do this work for myself, make myself strong. And in order to do that, like, guess what? You have to eat. Right. So
surprisingly,
if you want to get stronger, you need to eat food. And I remember like when I first started lifting, walking home from the gym and thinking, oh, you have to stop by the grocery store. You have to go get some chicken now. You have to make sure you're getting enough protein. If you don't get protein, like that was all for nothing. And just starting to have those thoughts and being like very encouraging to myself about eating. Like it was just, yeah, it's life-changing. And
yeah,
that's sort of where the WSC got its start, was my want to share that with more people, like the way that powerlifting and strength training and weightlifting has the ability to change you, not just physically, but mentally.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's really similar to how Empowered by Iron got started, because for years I've been able to like take analogies from lifting and apply them to life. And when Mary and I met, we talked about that a lot, not just kind of this idea of sharing everyone's stories about how they've been empowered through lifting and how they've changed their lives or recovered from eating disorder or recovered from, or use it as a coping mechanism for mental illness, and all this stuff is, it's really fascinating and amazing. And it's just, there's so much of it out there, and it's just amazing to be able to connect with those people and share those stories.
The one thing that you said that I think really resonated with me, besides the whole like, it'll stick with you for your whole life and it's never gonna get completely better, but you felt after you started lifting that you were no longer an ornament for your surroundings.
Yes.
And I think women who lift and who actually want to get strong and we care about what we look like, but we don't. It's kind of like a constant battle every day where we'd love to fit into a smaller size, but at the same time we don't. It makes women who lift a completely different breed of woman. We don't feel the need to fit into what society thinks that we should fit in or what we fit into the past. And that scares a lot of people. And it scares a lot of women when they first get into this. They're like, whoa, I don't care about this anymore. And so I really love that that's the reason or one of the reasons you started Women's Strength Coalition. Like that's fantastic.
Well, thank you. And I'm very happy to hear you say that, because that also ties in directly with like our larger mission and vision of what we want the nonprofit to become. One of our main theories is that, like you just said, when you start lifting, you start training, you do sort of become this different breed of woman or different breed of person, and you're able to advocate for yourself and stand up for yourself, and you're not afraid to take up space and speak your mind, and any number of things. I'm not going to list off examples like the Me Too hashtag and all of those different things. You understand what I'm saying. So that ties back into our want to increase access to strength training, like to not just discuss all of the ways that it has helped us, but to also make it something that more women and more members of the LGBTQ community have direct access to. That's one of the reasons why we want to open up our own community gym space, is so that we can provide programs. Like we have 2 programs written out, one of which is specifically designed to work with women that have a history of eating disorders. And it will be working with a social worker as well. Like she's going to be there to do group counseling. And we have a lot of things that we're all very interested in tying back together so that we can then take the strength that we've built through lifting and through interacting with each other, right, in this very safe space, and use it to go on and implement change in the world. So that's where the events sort of come back in. And there's all of these like, if X then Y then Z, it's very hard to just see like X to Z. But once you start to piece everything together, you can see that lifting and powerlifting and strength training for certain members of the population really does have the potential to change things and to change entire communities of people, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's probably one, if you get in the right community, if you go to like a regular gym, it's not really like that. But if you go to a gym where there are actually people lifting in a serious manner, you find that it is a very accepting space. Mm-hmm. People will show up and they'll say, well, you know, I'm a transgender female, born male, now I'm a female. And then you're like, that's fine. Can you bench? Do you want me to spot you? Can you spot me? Like, it's a very accepting environment. And that's one reason that I love it. No one ever judges you. Well, if they do, then poo-hoo on them. But.
Right. But again, that's at the right type of facility.
Right. That's and that hardly exists. It hardly exists.
And when it does, you know, it's about much more than lifting. It's about like building your friendships and your relationships.
Right. It's community, absolutely, belonging. And I think that that's something, when we talked to Bama Burr, she talked about how like this, having this community is like this belonging, and then everyone that lifts is all a little weird. Like we're all a little weird to do this to ourselves. And so that, like, okay, fine. I think she has a really valid point. Like, we probably are all a little bit different, and we're all unique, but we share this love for this thing that has changed our lives and morphed us into amazing people. And I think that's why the strength community is so accepting and loving, if for lack of a better word, because it is. We all get, like, you know, we all have our demons, and sometimes lifting helps us figure them out.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what do you see as kind of like the biggest change you would like to see in the fitness industry? I'm going to call it the fitness industry, not really the strength industry, but the fitness industry. What do you think is like the biggest thing that you would love to just see change tomorrow?
Well, I think something that's already beginning to happen, which is fantastic, is it's becoming more diverse. You're seeing now more than just white cisgender women being represented in social media, at least. It's hard to say this because it sounds like I'm going to be bashing current fitness professionals, and I am certainly not. But I do wish that fitness and coaching and training and group classes were more affordable for people.
Yes.
It's not fair to just say that without attempting to provide a solution, because I am a trainer. I am like a strength and conditioning specialist. This is my bread and butter. This is how I make my money. We charge this much money because we also need to live and to eat, right? But there has to be a better system. There has to be a better way so that more people are able to experience what it's like to have a coach. Planet Fitness is great. There's nothing wrong with going to Planet Fitness and training. It might not be like that inclusive community environment that we were just discussing, but it is there, right? And you are able to go and lift, and you can use the internet to like teach yourself, etc. But we all know what it's like to have a coach. We all know what it's like to go into a gym and to feel like you're a part of something. And just to have that support around you, it's really life-changing. And so I would like to see in the fitness industry that become more accessible to people, more affordable.
Oh,
it's a big
totally
ask.
Agree. No, well, you go.
I totally agree with that, and I see I'm like a different side to that same issue is I'm in healthcare, and I see like that. I mean, if you don't have health insurance, or even if a lot of people can't afford health insurance, we won't get into the whole debate, but it's like, how do you reconcile, for me as a clinician, how do I reconcile, like, I fully believe in affordable healthcare, and also I have to pay my student loans and I have to put dinner on the table and
Yes.
all this stuff. And it's really, I think that's something that all of us in this industry, like you went into this to help people and I went into healthcare to help people, and it's easy to get caught up in like, just, well, everyone charges this much money or whatever, and so you're going to charge that much, and all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, but I wouldn't pay that much, like, or I couldn't have afforded this, and it really is a problem. So, do you have ideas on how to solve that, or like
well, that's what we're trying to do. that's
so because it's so hard. I mean, it's like yeah, you say this, and it's like, yeah, absolutely. And then all of a sudden you look at it and you're like, how the hell do we solve this issue? It's such a big issue.
Well, I think a lot of it
systemic. Sorry.
Yeah.
No, yeah, that's what I was going to say. Yeah.
It's all tied in to each other. It has to do with how much money you make, what you can afford here and there. And then it goes back to issues like privilege, and it's all mixed up together, and it has to do with like the greater systems in the country. So we're not going to solve all of them, right, as like powerlifters, but we can certainly try to implement some sort of change in this particular field. So like we've raised about a year's worth of rent for our space. We need to raise much more than that, but we're going to do it. And then when we do it, we're going to have sliding scale programs and sliding scale training and have people come in that are licensed professionals. I've got a physical therapist who wrote in just last week to volunteer her time. She wants to see people that can't afford it. So we're going to be looking for all of these different volunteers. And if we get enough people together, which we kind of already do, then it's really just the issue of raising the money for rent for the first few years so that we become viable candidates for like foundations. Because foundations don't necessarily want to give nonprofits money to like get started, right? We need to prove that what we're doing has value.
Right.
That's a long-winded answer.
But no, I get it. And you have to, to that same tune is you have to prove that, like, I mean, you've put in a lot of the legwork. You've done all this work. You've gotten this far, and now, you've got a really good base. And so, something that will interest some foundations in helping you out, hopefully.
Hopefully. And, we do have the vice president, of the WSC. She currently works for a nonprofit. She has experience implementing programs and then like tracking the data to prove their efficacy. It's not, we're not just lifters. Like we also have like all of this experience that's culminating in this project that's really just getting off the ground.
That's amazing. How many people are part of the Women's Strength Coalition?
Yeah, tell us about all your people. Tell us your peeps.
Oh, gosh. As you can imagine, I do most of the heavy lifting. Like I try to do all of the menial task. I do the social media and I curate the blog. But then we have, and it's also on like our team page. We have Aurelia. She's the vice president. We have my friend Sarah. She's our treasurer and she works for a nonprofit, like doing their finances. So I've set up this advisory board of women that are very kind to volunteer their time and also have an interest in helping this grow because of the ways that lifting has affected their lives. And then right now we have a kind of a small face group of volunteers I set up, I think 2 months ago. We have, I believe, 330 people in that. And we are in the process of setting up different chapters in different cities. So right now we have someone really wonderful named Lise in Atlanta. She is going to host one of our Pull for Pride events. We've got someone in Minneapolis, Mark Schneider, who helped us a lot with Pull for Pride. They're going to host this year. In California, in DC, obviously here in New York and Pennsylvania, in Texas. So we're slowly growing, and I'm very curious to see what comes from this.
Well, that's really good. I mean, that's basically the whole United States, essentially. All kind of the major parts.
Every region.
Yes.
Every region. Yeah. Except for like right in the center, like Oklahoma or something.
Yeah.
Oh, we do have Nashville. That's
awesome.
We're hosting an event there in February. So
awesome. So then all of your events, are they all lifting competitions of some sort?
So great question. The event in February is actually going to be a grip strength competition.
Ooh.
Are you familiar with those?
No, but that sounds terrifying.
Yeah. You just have to hold on to weight.
That sounds horrible.
I okay, really so not like hanging. You're not like hanging and going to fall to your death.
That's what I was thinking.
It's not like Survivor.
Like Ninja Warrior kind of thing. No. Okay.
Exactly. So, but then so far they have been powerlifting or like specifically deadlift only. Mm-hmm. And then this November 19th, actually coming up, we have our Lift for Now. So that's for the National Organization of Women Foundation. And it is our first weightlifting event.
Cool.
And that's the one you guys have been advertising on Instagram. It's in New York, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. It's at Brooklyn Athletic Club. They hosted our first event. They're really, really great and nice.
That's fantastic.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's that.
You have an amazing organization. I'm very impressed with. And you've only been going since what, February you said, or January?
February.
Yeah. That's awesome.
So not even a
Making
year.
good headway. I love it.
When you say it all out loud, it does sound pretty good.
It really does.
It's just me in my room, like frantically typing.
Yeah.
It's not that exciting.
Oh, we know how that goes.
Oh, yeah. We know. Like Sunday night at 9:00 p.m. Hey, this thing crashed. We might not have an episode tomorrow.
It's like, well, we're all trying, though, aren't we?
We gave it our best effort.
Yeah.
Well, we would love to talk to you about the one in Atlanta because we're 2 hours outside of Atlanta. So we would love to volunteer any way that we can to help you. And listeners, if you're listening, Atlanta, whenever that will be, we'll make sure to post about it, the crap out of it. And you guys can come and meet us and come hang out with WSC.
For sure. So, perfect. Liz Saunders, she's an incredible woman. She coaches at 2 different CrossFits in Atlanta, and they're up on our website. And she also hosts very affordable LGBTQ lifting sessions for like new lifters. She's great. She reached out almost right away. Like we had her New York Times article come out, and then she sent me like the longest, best email about how much she wanted to get involved. So one of the gyms that she works at will be hosting a Pull for Pride, and Pull for Pride, they all happen in the month of June because June is National Pride Month. And those events all raise money for different nonprofits in their city that focus on the epidemic of LGBTQ youth homelessness. So it's a way to connect communities and their nonprofits and to also discuss topics that aren't necessarily like in the voters box, but should be like in the forefront of our consciousness.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you're interested in that, I'm more than happy to connect you to her, and maybe you could interview her too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we're all about that, spreading the love.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
So now back to you. Are you're a competitive powerlifter? You're a trainer? Is that what you do for your daily job?
Yes, and yes.
Yes and yes. So what do you compete? When's your next competition? What is your best? What are your goals?
Okay. So my next my next competition is in February. My goals are very manageable and achievable goals. I'm 32, as I mentioned. I've been lifting for about, I think, around 3.5 years now. I've already achieved my lifetime bench, so I've always wanted to bench 150, and I can do that for a triple now.
Dang.
That's my best lift. I like to lead with bench. I just squatted 220 for a triple very recently, and I was so excited about that. It took me a really long time to break the 200 barrier.
Yes.
Like I don't know what was going on. I don't know if it was mental. I would like to blame my long legs, but I will not do that. I will in my head, but I know better than to do it on the internet.
Right, you will get eaten alive.
So it's going to post a picture of, I know. And then for deadlift, I think my best deadlift is around 290. I can't remember what I did at the last competition that I had, but I've done 285 for a set of 5.
Wow.
But for some reason, when I competed, I wanted 300. I think we just like our jumps were too high between attempts. I opened up with like 270 something, like something really low, and then did 280 something, and then went for like that 303, and my body was like, "Fuck you." Sorry.
No, it's okay. You can cuss.
Not gonna happen. I know how that goes. Mm-hmm. It's like amazing. I was just squatting yesterday, and I was testing my 1 rep max, and I like very easily did a weight. So I was like, well, let's just be reasonable here and add 3 kilos, and couldn't do it. It was like night and day. The bar just rolled down my back. I was like, but it was only 3 kilos. What the hell? So I was like, okay, fine. Let's just try like 2 kilos. No, that didn't work. And I'm like, well, maybe we'll try like half a kilo. And then I misloaded the bar, so that obviously didn't work. But it's like, how does this happen?
Yeah, it's almost worse when you like really believe you can do it.
Yeah.
Because when you're like, I'm not sure if I can do this, when you don't do it, you're like, well, probably part of it was mental. But when you really think that you can and then you can't, you're like, oh no.
You get out there and make a spectacle. You're like breathing heavy and like looking at the bar angrily, and then you try to yank on it and you're like, fuck. All right.
Like, remember that one time when I started back squatting? I was out for some surgery, and I came back, and I was just starting to squat, and I loaded up the bar with the weight I was supposed to. I mean, I like warmed up, and then I put weight on it, and I get under it, and I look at Mary, and I was like, I think the bar's stuck. It just felt, I wasn't prepared for how heavy it was gonna feel. Like I just couldn't lift it. It was like really light. I was like, yeah. Mary's like, really? Did our squat stands malfunction?
I was worried she was about to die because we have squat stands, and I'm terrified that those are going to kill us one day. Well, we're just so happy to have you on. We look forward. Hopefully we can collab and come up with some cool things between Empowered by Iron. But we just really wanted to have you on to discuss Women's Strength Coalition and who you are and what your whole mission is. And I think we've fallen in love.
Yeah, I would say that's safe to say.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm just so excited for, I was excited for what we're doing for the strength community. I'm even more excited what you're doing for the strength community. Yes. That is amazing. And I'm just like, that makes my heart happy that there's people out there that are, stepping up and doing amazing work to basically make strength, access to strength training and lifting heavy shit. We should all have access to that.
Yeah.
You're fighting our fight, and we're grateful for it.
Yeah.
No, we're all in it together. We got to stick together.
Oh my God, do we have
like
to
super
stick
important.
Together?
Yeah.
Yeah, like glue, man. We can't.
Yeah.
We cannot come apart. So tell everyone where they can find you and where they can find your nonprofit, Women's Strength Coalition.
So you can go to womensstrengthcoalition.com. That's our website where you will see our blog as well as the events that we have coming up. If you're interested in volunteering with us, if you're interested in hosting an event, I would love it for you to email me at shannon@womensstrengthcoalition.com. Women's Strength Coalition also happens to be our Instagram name. And my Instagram is ShannonKimWSC. It is not that exciting.
That's okay. I feel you. I'd rather build Empowered by Iron than my own stuff. It's like, I'm not trying to be an influencer.
No. Me neither. No, I don't need that.
I want people to love the brand. I don't really care if they love what I do.
Thank you. Exactly. I don't need to be like Insta famous or
no. And that kind of terrifies me. Does it terrify you? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's like I don't feel that. I mean, I'm strong, but I'm not like strong, like going to the Olympics strong. Like I haven't done anything in the strength world that's really recognizable, except the podcast.
That's the point, right?
Yeah. Right. Because but that doesn't mean I should be Insta famous. People aren't going to be like, oh, look at her. She's lifting average weights. I look up to her.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are.
You never know who's looking up to you. You never know.
No, I feel stupid saying
that. I have a really good friend who, like, she put me in my place one day. I said something about we're at CrossFit, and I said something about, like, being, like, chubby or weak or something, which are not, and she was like, she looked at me and she was like, are you fucking kidding me right now? Like, do you know how many people look up to you because of your strength or whatever? Like, just because you are comparing yourself to a CrossFit Games athlete, like people locally look up to you. And I was like, they do? Okay, well now I feel like an asshole. So, okay, so I'll never say that again. You never know.
Well, now I feel like an asshole.
You are?
No.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
All right, Empowered by Iron is over.
Just kidding.
Well, thank you so much for being on.
Thank you.